Today's today's daf is daf Chaf Dalid, and we'll solve the Mishnah on daf Chaf Gimel Amid Beis. In the previous Mishnayos, we had a discussion about Shein v'Regel, and we had Chamisha Tamim, Chamisha Mu'adim. Our Mishnah is going to explain what a Shara Mu'ad is all about. Ezu Tam, how does a Shar Tam become what's called Chazara? It already became a Shara Mu'ad, and now it wants to do tshuva, so to speak, and revert back to its original status as a Shar Tam. Now, if it was a Tam to begin with, meaning it's within the first three negichos, then it goes without saying, we don't need the Tana to explain that every Shar is innocent until proven guilty. It's a Tam. But here it's already proven himself to be guilty, and on 3 occasions it was no geach, and now it wants to go back, or we want it to go back to the status of a Shar Tam. And the pasuk in Shmos says, "O noda ki shar nagachu mitmol shilshon." If it would have said v'im shar nagachu, then it would be mashma that we're talking after the reality of 3 negichos. But then it says, "O noda ki shar nagachu," and that seems to indicate that it's not totally dependent on mitzias, on the number of negichos, but also on yediyah. So therefore, even though befall, in actuality, it was already no geach, and we still have to add a yediyah. We have to know for sure that it's continuing in that property and that propensity as a nagchon. And that's what the Mishnah is addressing here with the word ezo. Ezo muad kol she'idu bo shloshi yomim. So this is the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, that the negichos have to be on 3 different days. And then tam, it means chazara, to be tam, sheyachzer bo shloshi yomim. You also need 3 days of chazara, which means that it sees other oxen and it does not attack them. Reb Meir Omer, muad she'idu bo shlosha pa'am. It doesn't matter, even if the 3 negichos were on 1 day, and tam kol sheyu atinokos mishamshim bo v'yeinu nogeh. Now, there's a twofold machlokas here, 2 issues. One about how to create a shar muad, and number 2, how to be choser from muad to become a tam again. And these are 2 independent issues, 2 controversies that are totally independent one of the other. In terms of the first controversy, how does a shar become a muad? Rabbi Yehuda holds got to be on 3 different days, each negich on a different day, whereas Rabbi Meir holds no, 3 negichos makes it into a shar muad. As far as chazar is concerned, Rabbi Yehuda requires a chazar in which it sees other animals and desists from attacking them, whereas according to Rabbi Meir, it's enough that the children are playing with the between the horns of the head of the animal, and that should anger the animal, and the animal is still shafel. Shafel means still docile. So even though the children did what's called a shisui, shin yud samach vav yud, which is called an antagonization, they antagonized the shar, nevertheless it remained docile. The Gemara asks, my time of the Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Rabbi Yehuda insist that only if on 3 different days there was no gerech becomes a shar muad? Omar Abaye, Rabbi Yehuda derives it from the pasuk. The pasuk says, "O noda ki shar nagachu mitmol shilshon v'lo yishmerabo." Tmol chad, that's 1 negicha on 1 day. Mitmol, the mem is a remez for another day, and you got trey, you have 2 yomim, 2 different days. And then it says shilshon in the pasuk is the 3rd day, tlasa. And then V'loish Menu Bolav Hasan L'Negicha Revius, and he's chayev nezek shalom on the Negicha Revius. Rav Omar, Rav has a different way of interpreting the pasuk. Tmol, mitmol, chad. In other words, whether it said tmol or mitmol, in both cases, that's only referring to one day of Negicha. Shilshom is trey. And then v'loish merenu ha'idna. Now, at the time of the Negicha Shlishis, there was no watching, to prevent the Negicha, chayav, and the mazik has to pay nezek shalom. So here we have a machlokas rishonim about Rabbi Meir. Let's go back for a moment to Rabbi Meir. Tosus, Divir Masel Sheyehu, writes that according to Rabbi Meir, he concedes to Rabbi Yehuda that Chazor on 3 days is a Chazor. He's just adding that there's another method of Chazorah, Al Yidei Tinokos. The Rambam, on the other hand, indicates that there is no Chazorah for Rabbi Meir except through Tinokos, Shemamashmashim. The Ruki Yosef writes that from the fact that Rabbi Meir did not mention at all Chazor of Sholosh Piyamim, it seems that one time of Chazor is enough if the Tinokas are Memashmish V'Ein Nogea. And that seems to support the Rambam Shita. Now, what's the difference between Abaye and Ravi? According to Abaye, the Shar becomes a Shar Muad only after 3 Negichos, and therefore it pays Nezek Shalom on the 4th Negicha. Rav, on the other hand, holds that with the first 2 Negichos, it already becomes a Shar Muad, and on the 3rd Negicha, you pay Nezek Shalom. That's how Rashi learns this sugya. Tosus, Divir Maskav Lo, explained that according to everyone, you only pay Nezek Shalom on Negicha Revius, and even Rava agrees to that. The Machlokas is only in Pirush Hakra. Abaye holds that when it says V'lo Yishmerenu, that's referring to the Negicha Revius. Rava holds that it's referring to the Negicha Shlishis, in which he becomes a Sharmuad, and it's only on the Negicha Revius that he pays for not guarding properly and watching a Sharamua. Rabbi Meir, my timer, why does Rabbi Meir reject this Sholosh Negichos on Shloshi Yomim, and instead he substitutes Sholosh Negichos on Yom Echad? The San Yom Rabbi Meir, and here we begin our daf for today of Dalit. Richek Negichos of Chayav, Kirim Negichos of Lakolshken. Rabbi Meir has a Kavachomer. If the animal is Marchik is Negichos, in other words, a day goes by until it does the second Negicha, another day till the third Negicha, then how much more so is it proven to be established to be a belligerent animal if on one day it continuously is no Geah, lo koshkin. Amrule, so they told Rabbi Meir, Zava Tochiach, you don't have a right to establish a Kal V'chomer from Richek to Kirev, because with regard to a Zava, now we have to be a little careful here. There are 2 dinim in a Zava. There's one din of what's called the Shomeres Yom Kedeged Yom, which means that with one Re'iyah, she's Tmeah for 1 day, and that's called the Zava Ketana. But then we have, and that's the emphasis in our Sugya, Zava Gedola, which means she has 3 Re'iyos. And the 3 Re'iyos have to be on 3 different days, and then she becomes Tmeah. And she's Tmeah as a Zava Gedola with Tumas Shiva, and she has to bring a carbon and so forth and so on. But Kirva Re'iseha, let's say she sees 3 Re'iyos on 1 day, Tahora. Again, be careful. It doesn't mean Tahora. It means she's a Zava Ketana, and she only has a Tumah of Yom Kedeged Yom. But Tumah Zayin is only generated by 3 Re'iyos on 3 different days. Amalahen, Rabbi Meir responds, Hareu Omer, Vizos Tia Tum also Bizovo. Here the Torah is contrasting with the word Zos between a Zava and a Zav, a female and a male. And what is the mashma? What is the meaning of this miut? Tola kosuv es hazav b're'ios, which means that the zav becomes a zav after 3 riyos, even on 1 day, but es hazava b'yomim. But with regard to a zava, we need 3 days. So the Torah makes this fundamental distinction between a zav and a zava, and that proves that the reason for the Tuma Shiva and a zava is because she gains a chazaka. Is not because she gains a chazaka. In the case of Zav, he had 3 re'ios, and therefore he gets a chazaka. But that chazaka is not enough to establish a zava for Tuma Shiva Yomim, because of Gzeres HaKosu. And therefore, in the case of a Shavuot, all we need is chazaka. We don't have a Gzeres HaKosu. And therefore, Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that Richek Negichosov is Kirev Negichosov Kolshke, which basically reflects what we saw in the case of a Zav. Because he has a chazaka with 3 re'ios. How do you know that the word vizav is coming to say that although re'ios is metami zav, but it's not metami zava? Ema perhaps l'mutei zav miyomim. Maybe the word vizos is coming to tell you that the zav is not metami biyomim, but only b're'ios. Like Gemara answers, Hamakra, the pasuk says with regard to Tumazav, Vazav es zova l'zachar l'nekeva, makish zachar l'nekeva, ma nekeva b'yomim. So you can't tell me that the pasuk is coming to be mamayit zav from yomim because we have a hekesh between zachar and nekeva, it's af zachar b'yomim. So therefore the vizos has to tell me lemute zav miyomim. In fact, the Gemara of a lakish the cable is off. Maybe we do the hekesh in the opposite direction. And ma zocha b're'ios af nekeva b're'ios, and therefore the chiddush of this hekesh of la zocha nekeva is that just like a zav, if he sees 3 re'ios in 1 day, he becomes a zav. So to a zav, if she has 3 re'ios in 1 day, she becomes a zav. And the Gemara answers hamiyat rachmana v'zos. That's why the Torah had to add the pasuk v'zos as a miyut, and that miyut is in the parsha of Zav. It says vizos to teach me that only in Zav, in the male, there's tumas re'ios. In fact, the Gemara Myra Isa. How do you know that we should use the hekesh to midmar yomim in a case of Zav? And the miyut is coming to say to be mamayit Zava from re'ios, and she requires yomim. Maybe we'll say the opposite. Maybe the hekesh is coming to be marba that a zava should be metame b'sholosh riyos b'yom echad, and the miyut of vizos is coming to teach me that a zav is not tame b're'ios but only b'yomim. I'm sorry, is not metame b'yom but only b're'ios. And the Gemara answers mistabra koi b're'ios v'mayit rios koi b're'ios v'mayit yom. And you have to read that with the inflection of a question mark. It's logical to assume that if the pasuk is referring to re'ios, and there you find the word vizos, it's coming to be mamayit in the case of a zav, where the word vizos appears, re'ios. And koi b're'ios mamayit yomim, it doesn't make any sense to say that the vizos that's written in re'ios zav should come to exclude zav from yomim. The pasuk is not referring to yomim at all. What's a Shavuot called She'ita B'Shlosha Yomim? This is the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. But apparently other Tanoim accepted the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda with regard to Muad. How do you become a Muad? However, with regard to Chazara, V'tam, B'di Chazara to be Tam, She'yu Atinok Sham Shebo, V'edenoget Divrei Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi is a combination of the 2 Shitas. He accepts Rabbi Yehuda about how you create a muad, and he accepts Rabbi Meir about how you revert a muad back to the status of a tam through tinokus mishamshim. Rabbi Shimon Omer just the opposite. Muad kol shida bo shalosh piyamim even if he was nogea 3 times in one day, like Rabbi Meir. But with regard to Chazar, he passes like Rabbi Yehuda that it has to be on 3 different days. We're going to accept the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda in Muad because Rabbi Yossi Modelo. We saw that Rabbi Yossi accepts the principle and the view of Rabbi Yehuda that you need 3 different days to make it a Muad. But Allah Rabbi Meir B'tam, Sharei Rabbi Yossi Modelo, because Rabbi Yossi accepted the view of Rabbi Meir with regard to Chazara in a Shar Muad being chosen to become a Tam. Why not go the exact opposite? Sharei Rav Shimon Modelo. Rav Shimon, with regard to creating Muadas, accepted the view of Rabbi Meir. And with regard to Chazara, Allah Rabbi Yehuda B'tam, Sharei Rav Shimon Modelo, Rav Shimon accepted the view of Rabbi Yehuda in Tam that you need a Chazara of 3 days. Amalei, Rabbi says to Rav Nachman, Anak, Rabbi Yossi, Sfir later, Rabbi Yossi, Nimuko Imo. I always have Machriya Allah Rabbi Yossi because we have a principle that we always paskin like Rabbi Yossi against other Tanoim. Iboilahu, Shloshi Yom, Diktani, Liyudei Torah, Liyudei Gav. Well, this is a brisker sugya we're about to learn. When we say that we require 3 days to establish the shor as a shor muad, and that's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, and we paskin says Rabbi Nachman like Rabbi Yossi. What is the purpose of these 3 days? Is it liyudei Torah, in order to make the shor into a shor muad, or liyudei gavra? We want to give the gavra, the bala shor, time to digest the fact that his shor is on its way to becoming muad. If 3 different pairs of Eidim came to testify, each one came on a different day. Each one was testifying on an agicha of a different day, so the shor becomes a shor muad. But all 3 kitos came to testify after the 3rd agicha on the same day. So now the shor is a shor muad. There were 3 agichas on 3 days, but v'yamrit liyudei gavra lo miyayid. There was no hasra of the gavra on each of 3 days. Why? Meimar Omer, the Baal Shor say hashta komisadi. Now you're telling me on one day, in one fell swoop, that my shor is a shor muad. You didn't give me a chance to try to supervise and contain my shor on 3 different occasions. What's the deal? Now, the Ravid and others point out that the Gemara's suffix would apply even to Rabbi Meir. Again, it only mentions the 3 days because Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda, but even according to Rabbi Meir, that the shor becomes shor muad b'yom echad, do we have to have a ha'ada after each one of the kitos in order to warn the bailet? And that's called Yudei Gabra. Toshma in ashor nase muad. Ache idu bo b'fnei bailim ufnei bezdin. He idu bo b'fnei bezdin v'lo b'fnei bailim v'lo b'fnei bezdin in nase muad. Ache idu bo b'fnei bezdin u bailim. So we need that the ha'ada be in front of Bezdin, the Eidim testify in front of Bezdin, and also in the presence of the Baal HaShor. And that's called Yamod Baal HaShor al Shora. We're testifying against the Baal HaShor, he has to be there. Furthermore, says the Brisa, Hey idu shnayim b'rishono, shnayim b'shnio, shnayim b'shlishis. If 2 Eidim testify on the first Negicha, and only on the first Negicha, another kat of 2 Eidim testify on the second Negicha, and a third kat testifies on the 3rd Negicha. Now the shor becomes a shor muad because of the 3 different kitos. Harekan sholosh edios, and if one of those 3 kitos becomes psula, then we still have the other 2 edios. Each one is a separate kat edus. And we'll wait for another kat to come in and testify in the 3rd Negicha and replace that kat that was determined to be possible. But what about the din of Hazama? Ve'hein edus achas lazom, which means what? Nimtzeis kat rishona zomemes. So now there's no ample testimony on which to establish that the shar is a shar muad. Hare kan shtei edios, but that doesn't in any way disqualify the other two kitos of edim. For who patur? But on the third negicha, the Baal Hashar doesn't have to pay nezik sholem, because we found one of the three kitei edim to be a kat psula, a kat muzemes, but hein pturin. The other two edei negicha, just 1 second. No. Who patur? The Baal Hashar is patur because we only have two kitei edim. But what about the first kat of edim that was subject to azama and two edim testified against him imonu ayisa? Should we apply the principle of l'sisim lo kasher zaman? Pturim. The kat rishona is ptura, because again the kat rishona only has mama to be made on 1/3 of the establishment of the shar as the shar muah. And the same thing should apply in nimtzeis kat shniya zomemes harei kan edus achas v'hu patur v'hein pturim. However, nimtzeis kat shlish zomemes. Now we found not only the first kat to be edim zomim, not only the second kat to be edim zomim, but even the third kat to be edim zomim. I'm not sure if it's the same two edim who say yimanu ayisim to each of the three kitos. I don't know. But what's the din? The Brisa says, kulan chayov. In other words, we take the chiyuv of whatever the amount is for shar muad, and we divide it into 3, and each one of the kitos, through the loch of kasher zaman, will pay 1/3. Al zeh nemar v'asisim lo kasher zaman lassus liyochim. Frekti Gemara, I amrit liyudei Torah shapit. I can understand this halacha that the third hadah, the third testimony on the third day is liyudei Torah is shaper. Now you understand why the first two kitos also have to pay a chelik, because they were all part of the muadus, of creating muadus. And therefore the law of kasher zamam should apply to them as well. Let's just add a few more words on Amid Beis. Ela iyamrit liyudei gavra lemulu hanoch kamoy hanomi havi adin debasa shloshi yomim asu hani miyadile.